This is my history of Miranda Project by Maurice Love. What is Miranda? Miranda rights are legal protections that police must explain to you before questioning you while you are in custody. They tell you that you have the right to remain silent and do not have to answer questions. They also explain that anything you say can be used against you in court. You have the right to have a lawyer with you during questioning. If you cannot afford a lawyer, one will be provided for you. These rights come from the case Miranda versus Arizona. Miranda rights exist to make sure you understand your options and aren't pressured into talking without knowing your rights. Before Miranda, courts focus on whether a confession was voluntary. If police didn't use extreme force or obvious threats, confessions were often allowed. But in reality, suspects were sometimes pressured, misled, or questioned for long hours. The U.S. Supreme Court started to get concerned about fairness, especially under the Fifth Amendment. You can't be forced to testify against yourself. Miranda versus Arizona. Miranda versus Arizona is a case where Ernesto Miranda was arrested in Phoenix, Arizona for kidnapping and raping an 18-year-old girl. He confessed to a crime, but the police never told him he had the right to remain silent or ask for a lawyer. At the time, police didn't always have to explain your rights before questioning you. The Supreme Court said that it wasn't fair and police must tell you your rights before questioning you. These are now called Miranda rights. His original confession was thrown out because police hadn't informed him of his rights. But he was tried again, this time without using the confession. Prosecutors used other evidence, including testimony from people connected to the case. He was convicted again and served time in prison. After the Miranda rights laws were put in place, right after the law was set in place, procedures had to change, basically overnight. Officers began reading rights aloud before interrogation. Standard warning cards became common. Courts started throwing out statements when without proper warning. This was a big shift toward protecting suspects' rights. As a decision, police all over the U.S. had to change how they question people. Before asking questions, they now had to clearly say your rights, which were the Miranda rights, the Miranda warning. If they forgot anything, you could get thrown out in court at first. Many people didn't adapt and learn how to question people while following the rules. So basically, the Miranda rights law changed overnight and the police had to adjust to it basically overnight. And, that's pretty big because now every time they arrest somebody, they have to read their Miranda rights out loud to them, which seems pretty hard to me. And, just remembering that stuff, which can be very tricky. New York versus Quarles. A man that was a rape suspect was chased by the police into a supermarket. When they caught him, they saw he had an empty gun holster, but there was no gun. The officer asked where the gun was. The suspect nodded towards the gun and said it was over there. The suspect was not prosecuted for rape, but he was charged with criminal possession of a weapon. However, he argued that his statement, the gun was over there, was inadmissible and evidence because he had not first been given the Miranda warning. So basically, he was in the grocery store, the gun was out the holster, it was all the way across the store, and the police officer asked where his gun was, and he said it was over there. But they haven't read his Miranda rights yet, so he's trying to fight this. The U.S. Supreme Court ruled that the officer question was okay and that public safety comes first. So basically, that really didn't matter, and he was just doing that for no reason. This case made the public safety expectation to Miranda versus Arizona. Police can ask urgent questions without reading Miranda rights, but only if it's to protect people. Like finding a weapon if there's an emergency, or like finding a missing gun, police can question first and read your rights after. Berkeley versus McCarter. A police officer saw a car weaving on the road and pulled it over. The driver, George Berkermer, got out of the car when asked. The police officer noticed that George had trouble standing up and he seemed intoxicated. He gave him a sobriety test, which he failed. The officer asked if he had been drinking or using drugs. McCarter admitted he had used alcohol and marijuana. At this point, the officer did not read his Miranda rights. The officer then arrested him and took him to jail. Police can ask you questions during a traffic stop without reading your rights, but once you're officially under arrest, they must read them before questioning you. So it seems like, the Miranda rights, people keep trying to, testify against it and trying to beat their case because they think that, the officer is in the wrong, and that's because they didn't read their Miranda rights. But obviously they're in the wrong, and they think that they can get away with it. Dickerson versus the United States. A man named Charles Dickerson was charged with bank robbery. He made a statement to the FBI. He argued that his statement should be thrown out because he wasn't properly given Miranda warnings. The government responded and said, even if Miranda wasn't followed, the confession was voluntary, so we can still use it. This brought up a big constitutional question. The court said Miranda is based on Fifth Amendment. That means it's not just a suggestion, it's a legal requirement. Congress cannot overrule it because Miranda is tied to the Constitution. Congress cannot cancel it with a regular law. The law was struck down. Courts must continue to follow Miranda rules. This case did something huge. It saved Miranda rights from being weakened or removed. It made them a permanent part of U.S. law. It confirmed that police must still inform suspects of their rights or risk losing important evidence. After this case, police continued using Miranda warnings as standard practice. Courts consistently enforced those rules. There was no serious way for Congress to remove them anymore. So basically, they're trying to make a law to weaken or remove, the Miranda rights, but they can't do that. So that's where it got shut down at. And I don't know why these people keep trying to, go against the Miranda rights when they're doing robberies and raping people and stuff like that. Stuff that are very illegal. And to be honest, I don't think that's good. How do Miranda impact the U.S.? Miranda impacts the U.S. They make sure individuals know they don't have to talk to police or confess. This helps prevent unfair pressure or forced confessions. Police have to follow certain rules when questioning someone. This creates more consistent, transparent law enforcement practices across the country. If police don't properly give Miranda warning when required, statements from a suspect might not be allowed in court. That can weaken or change a case. It helps balance the power between the government and individuals by giving people a clear choice: speak or stay silent with legal help. And that's my Miranda Rights project.